So the dark factions timeline jump in order to continue existing without having to pass through the gates of destruction and recreation. This is because they were created through technology, not the divine creative force of existence. And these are the moon chain lineages. When we look at like the Greys and the Zetas, not all of them. And I don't want, anybody to think that I'm just making all one species like all, negative, but it's what they're attempting to do to the human race. Slave workers, doing what, like being under the control of this reptilian type agenda. And there's just so many different things that took place in our galactic history that talk about the engineering of species that used to be human that ended up becoming like these beings. The Orion Wars, what happened on Rigel with the tall whites, and just a lot of, attempted modification, which, as we see, has been successful. So the dark factions, timeline jump because they're able to utilize technology and AI in order to allow this to happen, to, gather intel and also try and, mess with history and timelines in our future potentials. And, they just keep cheating death. As long as we are their battery, they have some level of immortality. So mass biological and mind control devices exist well beyond the technology of implanting tiny physical chips into humans, which accompanied many of the abductions by the Greys and non-benevolent Zetas, and also are an impending application of such electronic devices by the one world government to the population. Even brain signatures radiated by government HARP and Gwen towers are relatively superficial compared with the ancient existing global grid systems, which can be used for manipulating the evolution of all life on the planet, including the planet's evolution itself. So right there, we're talking artificial timelines. And this is from Noel Huntley, PhD, educated about global grid systems and mass mind control. So then we also have the chemtrails. The ruling elite have devised chemtrails as a means of covertly microchipping us all in order to create antennas inside of us via nanotechnology, so as to make us totally controllable via a psycho-civilized, electronically mind-controlled society. Using HARP microwave antennas, the National Security Agency can establish a seamless computer link direct to our brains, but first they're using chemtrails to get the nanoparticles into us, which are reassembling in our bodies to form the antennas. So it's interesting to note that supposedly a year or so ago, citizens of China were given mandatory vaccinations. And then we hear about this virus as a bioweapon being purposely leaked. And then how that spreads all over the world. We have to understand the artificial component of this reality and how it can, electronically connect into this antenna that is forming from these nanoparticles, and somehow, put our brain waves and our creative energy in that entangled artificial timeline and creation. So it's really, really important to work on getting all heavy metals out of one's body. And I got a lot of recommendations, about that. Because again, when we look at virus spreads, but truth spreads. Love is a virus that is a positive virus. So each one of us needs to be taking the time to generate something that can counteract all of this, and not allow ourselves to not be able to connect with these initiatory planets that help to advance us. When we resist them, our immune system gets weak, we're in fight or flight, we're ungrounded, and we're very, very easily used. So the more you get freaked out about the news that you're hearing, the more you need to remind yourself to just take the time to breathe deep and to connect with yourself, use your creative power and intent to, write down what's most important, just to keep yourself grounded with it, because that consistency through the throat chakra of the magician and the Mercury energy is the real power that we hold, that we're being tricked out of. So mutations in DNA can occur as a natural or unnatural process. The unnatural is our exposure to mind control, weather weaponry, chemicals, artificial intelligence signals, vaccinations, laboratory-made viruses, and toxic elements. The fifth element, ether, was also put into reversals on the Earth grids. This has been corrected now. Our relationship to our inner spirit and doing ancestral clearing are some of the few things that can help us to align and integrate this energy. So a lot of us are carrying past life memories of a lot of trauma and catastrophe. So when we look at things like epidemics and where we are today in the world, the planetary vibration is completely different than it was then. So we have to know that we're dealing with way more like power coming in from the ether, which is the great purifier, that will help us to connect with the override frequency that they don't want us to know about. So when we look at how DNA is and where the potential of a certain being ends, the black suns have the 2 to 10 strands, and they don't go beyond the 10. And so they're trying to occupy, or they have been occupying, the 10th gate. And the 10th gate actually used to be where Tiamat was like opening us up to and connecting us with the avatar matrix. So that gateway got damaged. And then the ruby and Belial sun is the 9th to 11th strands. And that is located in the Stonehenge area. And that gateway is being compromised. And so when we go like 9 to 11, we have a great capacity to continue to move on. But with the 12th gate damaged, that makes it very difficult. So now, because of this ascension window, we're able to do something and repair something that has not been accessible for a really long time. So the diamond sun is the full 12 strand capacity. You know, you can read, you know, some of the names that are connected to it, you know, and just press pause on the video. Then you got the double diamond sun, which is double that 12. But once you reach that 12 strand, you have the capacity to continue to go on, because now you're out of where that damage is. And the 12th is, you know, where that galactic core connection with Andromeda begins. So then the double diamond sun, and then the emerald sun. So the double diamond sun, there is certain groups that have an extra 6 strands of DNA, and they're on Earth. And so, you know, we have the capacity to have 48 strands. Right now, humans are functioning at 2 to 3 strands. But the whole idea of ascension is that we're not going to be able to awaken our 12 strand DNA because of the gateways that have been compromised. So the 7th gateway connected to Saturn is going to keep us looping in our 7 chakra system. But these other gateways are going to, they've attempted to keep us from reaching into that true essence of Christ consciousness and 0 point energy. And so this window, the reason it's been so prophesized is because we now have the capacity to bring that in and to break this mind control and override the toxicity and the assaults and begin to work with the physics of higher dimensions that can alchemize and transmute this stuff. So through the negative alien invasion, the interaction between polarized forces of male and female principle were intentionally split apart into gender reversals. The primary method of accomplishing this agenda was to attack and destroy the mother and sophionic female principle in order to stop her from embodying in matter. So knowing that, you know, there was that Achamoth because of the explosion of Tiamat, but also the Mother Earth that was created and the cosmic mother that will always be the cosmic mother in that position, the part that's been damaged is what they're trying to keep alive. And so the continual abuses and world wars and all the things that we see playing out on the timeline are to keep this going. And we see that in the archetypes of, you know, false king of tyranny, like, and that's very much a metaphor of the control system that we're dealing with. The patriarchal programming that's impacted both men and women. Men have lost connection to their inner feminine. Women, you know, feel very victimized, and they're, you know, learning to find that warrior energy to rise out of those underworlds. So, you know, that's where this polarity integration needs to take place, because when the masculine and feminine are in harmony, we're able to connect with the light, the true light of source, and bring it into the physical plane and absolutely shift everything. So it's the exile of the divine feminine, rising out of the underworld. I mean, a lot of us just do this many times in this lifetime, going into that dark night of the soul and maybe manifesting a narcissist or a control freak, or being born into a family that's been very difficult, or being up against, you know, a very challenging scenario in the physical plane. I mean, there's so many different levels to those level of, you know, those kind of challenges. Ones would be just the way the school systems and culture is set up. But when you think about all the MK Ultra victims and people that have been MyLabs or in secret space programs and done a 20 and back, I mean, this is all a part of keeping this alive, this split between us. So intentionally split apart into gender reversals. And so that's also something that we can tackle and heal as we look at our relationships and the people we allow into our lives, and really begin to reset our vibration and remember who we are and know where we need boundaries. So the guardian host perspective states that the Baphomet is a satanic field in the earth. This is essentially the satanic ritual abuse of the mother, the Holy Mother's Cathar body, holding her hostage by binding her body into the earth through demonic forces to produce the Dark Mother. So basically, they captured pieces of the mother. They replaced it with like this Baphomet, this reversal mother energy, this dark mother energy, and have given us some sort of exposure to the divine feminine, but through distorted teachings that don't really tell the full story and help us to really understand the connection between the divine feminine and the earth and the true sacred union template of Christ Sophia. We either hear about Christ or we hear stories about, you know, the Marys and, you know, different goddesses in different cultures. And there's, you know, a lot of also animosity and demonization of some of these, you know, beings as well, which is all part of, you know, these darker agendas. I mean, ultimately, that's just going to only harm us. So this whole scenario is the source of ancient pain held in the planetary body when we lost our true mother. It's felt in all lineages of the Holy Mother, the Cathar lines, the Mary Magdalene Sophias, and just anybody who's in touch with their own authentic inner feminine and masculine. And so that is where parts of us have been kind of chained to the underworld and kept in like this loop. So breaking the chains is to pay attention to where you are still struggling with something that is attempting to have control over you and manipulate your mind, or use you for your abilities. Sophianic heart language is created within the substance of mother's quintessence ether, which has related qualities to the elements of water as a frequency carrier. The substance of Holy Spirit, when imbued with Sophianic heart tones, carries through sonic sound waves, transforming them to emit ranges of frequency in plasma liquid light. So that's what it has returned, right? So as of 2010, when the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Fiacus, that ether energy began to return. The grounding and anchoring of the diamond heart in the planetary body began to return. The gateways and the energy grids on the planet began to shift and change. And this whole kind of awakening started to really just accelerate. But of course, we see a lot of traps. And what the dangers are is, with a virus like this, is that they create the problem and present the solution, but the solution enslaves us even more. So we have to really work with earth medicines. We really have to tap into like our own ability to overcome this kind of stuff and be very, very careful of the false solutions, which they do, you know, with the false war on terror and how we've dealt with false flags in the world. So they have to present something that we are in agreement with. If we're not in agreement with those things, humans can gain sovereignty. Problem is we're so duped and tricked into it that most people just don't realize it, that they're making the most dangerous agreements. So we have to exercise our free will more than ever. And the planetary alignments for the rest of this month are going to give us an opportunity to really overcome this major obstacle that's presenting itself. And I think we're going to find by April that things have calmed down, but we're all going to have to work at this. And so this is about, you know, the quintessence, the fifth element related to, you know, the mother energy, and it's turning the inverted pentagram upright again. So as we see that fifth element in the underworld and that inverted pentagram going down, this is coming back up again. And I'll show you towards the end what these Venus transits are all about that actually connect in with this, because the Venus planet has been helping this Earth to do the repair work. And so on a cosmic and earthly level, these corrections have taken place and are taking place. So benevolent purpose. The seedings of the root races on this planet have been to reassemble the original DNA and reclaim that which was lost in the Lyran Wars with the Orion group. The 12-tree grid was designed to help reassemble the original avatar DNA of the human being in the lower harmonic universes and reclaim all aspects back into wholeness. The original human DNA pattern is arranged into 12 dimensionalized mathematical programs, each of which set the blueprint for one DNA strand. Each strand is composed of 12 base magnetic Mayan female codes, 12 base electrical male acceleration codes. And so when we see the artificial tree of life with the 10 spheres, that doesn't allow for us to reconnect. So the seedings of the root races were to ensure that there would be an eventual time where we'd have this opportunity. So in the Earth human lineages, there were 7 root races and 5 additional races seated within the Earth gene pool. And when you look at that, 7 plus 5 is 12. 5 cloister races are also known as star seeds or guardians that came in, and they could assist the lost souls through linking their consciousness to them. And without doing this, they would be stuck in time forever. So when a planetary body explodes, we get blown off the grid. And what that does to us, can make us so fragmented that there's just no way to really return. So these groups came in to help connect in with them, to give them kind of like a bridging energy to the 0 point, as like a bridge or a gateway to compensate for the fact that this all could have gotten a lot worse. And so the presence of the mother and her unconditional love is, a huge part of the repair work. And these star seeds and guardians are very connected to the blue ray and the aqua ray of the mother. And so, when we get injured, when we go through an accident, our body is automatically going to begin to repair itself. When we go through a traumatic event, there's an automatic response that, attempts to heal. So creation's no different. Exploded planets in a free will universe with dark entities that are trying to take control. Cosmic and natural law is encoded with its own ability to heal itself as an organism, as a larger multidimensional body that we all carry, that we are a replica of. So basically the sphere made this an ascension planet, that goddess sphere energy. The goal was to reconnect the morphogenetic fields of 12 planets back to Terra, where Tiamat was and where Tiamat exploded. This is how we ascend into higher earth energies. So 5 cloister races, 5 points to the pentagram, which is interesting. Metaphorically, this is aspects of ourselves, which is helping us to rise out of the underworld. So this is the 12 sphere. It's broken up into 5 different harmonic universes. And we've got the 3D physical dimension, the 5D, which is more connected to the soul matrix, 7D, which is monad, then 10, 11, 12, which is avatar. And so in our life, as we live out our experience, we all have this astrology map. And when we look at it, there's 12 zodiac signs. So we all carry different pieces of the whole template. And the whole idea is that we're able to come together in unity consciousness and give each other codes and frequencies that will help us to rebuild this architecture and embody again the tree of life template, not the artificial one, but the one that actually helps us to get our abilities back, move through the stargates, and not be bound to this physical plane. We will be able to come and go as we please. And it's really what, true freedom is about. So we attract different people and experiences to ourselves to help us get pieces that we might not be holding, and we give the gift of what we carry to others. So it doesn't do good to fight over our differences when it's our differences that are helping us to heal and rebuild and bring us wholeness. And being too polarized doesn't help either. The whole idea is that, we awaken what's dormant. We reconcile the different archetypal energies within ourselves, and we begin to allow, love to penetrate, and so I'll get into the medical astrology aspect and how the planets are connected with our organs and glands, and how when there's disruptions or interferences or ancestral patterns we're not addressing, how it becomes blocks. And those belief systems are rooted in a lot of the health issues we have that have been passed down that we might not even bother questioning. So it's a part of like our purpose to dig into our family lines a little bit, to understand how to work with our physical vessel, and then to also connect with our greater soul journey and understand who we are in the larger scheme of things. And really, what we represent, and if we need to change any kind of agreements or we're being led down the wrong path, we can create those corrections to rebuild this 12 tree grid. And so these frequencies, connect with, different signs of the zodiac and the stargates on Earth and our DNA strands and chakras. So rescue missions and divine beings targeted. There was an aggressive campaign to target and kill the original Christ Templars in an attempt to extinguish all records of the Essenes, Law of One, the Christos Sophia, the Mother Ark as the Holy Spirit, and the female principle's equal role to access Christos consciousness as the true wisdom and spiritual knowledge of our universe. So there was the massacre of the Essenes that was major, and a lot of infiltration that turned certain groups patriarchal. The ones that had been hosting the timeline that were meant to be more guardians and protectors ended up losing their ability to stay in connection, because this is a very, very disconnected density. It's very, very hard to have that direct connect, particularly because the cataclysms threw the planetary access off and made it very difficult for these gateways and these structures to stay connected to these, higher systems where, they connect with other layers of our multidimensional self and aspects of our DNA. So this is why it's been so difficult, because these teachings aren't something that we're presented with. And a lot of the ancient texts that can be helpful have been altered. And there's just so many of these texts that have been altered. So it's important to question these things. According to my research, the 13th Blu-ray was previously under the control of the Melchizedek hosting on our planet. But because they became fallen and patriarchal and were highly manipulated by the Orion group, the Mother Ark energy was not able to be in the Earth core. And this happened around the time of the Sumerian Egypt invasion. This is when the Mother Ark Aqua Blu-ray was not in the Earth core, hence the Earth had lost her Mother of God and female Christ Sophionic principle. And this is what really sealed the deal when the Baphomet, the alien mother, religions, and just the separation of us from our galactic memories began to happen. Because when we had those memories, we had something to go on to know how to stay aligned and healed. We could see the difference between the forces that have been trying to compromise us and the ones that, help us to stay connected. So without those memories, we're born with amnesia, and then we're very easily taken advantage of. And then with the mother energy gone, that theft has caused us to seek some level of nurturing or parenting from sources that aren't healthy, that might present themselves as being positive. So without the Mother Ark 13th gate or female principle able to manifest into form, it became hijacked and hidden, and the 13 families have kept the ritual abuse going to keep the dark reversals alive so that we would not connect to the mother or bring that energy back. And so a lot of the power structures and these hidden groups of the cabal are feeding the Saturn energy, So the Sumerian Egypt invasion, it was about 5,500 years ago, and it ripped 5D wormhole in Saqqara, Egypt. It rewrote, this was when human history started to get rewritten at the time of invasion, with earliest written records of the Sumerian tablets. This promotes Anunnaki as creator gods of humanity and patriarchal domination and enslavement agenda for Earth humans. So when we see like the Enki and Enlil, then Inanna going into the underworld and trying to counteract all this kind of stuff, kind of has been connected to the Venus archetype as well. So that's, interesting. And this is also behind a lot of the imposters and false teachings in, certain religions. And even some of the teachings of what would seem to be esoteric and actually helpful have also been altered by all sorts of, forces. And I'm not going to get into that today. And it's kind of disturbing for some people because they might have gravitated towards that. But the thing is, we can always gain something. And then when we're ready to leave it behind, we can leave it behind and continue to grow. We're not going to be compromised just because we attach to something for a little while. But for us to truly understand human sovereignty, we have to be very, very careful and discerning. So both benevolent and malevolent extraterrestrials have been involved with this planet for millions of years, and they have never left this planet. This was known, but 5,500 years ago, that all came to an end. The real extraterrestrial agenda is hidden, while a false record of human history is put into its place. So here we are, like pushing full disclosure, wanting full disclosure. And man, it's like 2020, and this is where we are after all this time to just help people reconnect with the bigger picture and what's really going on. So here we are with timeline wars. Basically, it's between the 10D base distortion, AI timelines, and organic timeline, which is based on the 12D base. And the 12D is considered, takes us all the way to the avatar consciousness, reconnects us with Andromeda and Milky Way galactic core, connects us with the mother energy of the earth, which is now available, which opens us up to our higher chakras that we were separated from and manipulated out of connecting with. So looking at this again, the whole idea is that the artificial timelines are a phantom matrix overlay. And what is this phantom matrix overlay? Well, it connects into a phantom earth. So studying some of the Keylontic science, it explains a phantom planet is no longer capable of evolving out of the harmonic time cycle in which it is placed. It is no longer considered an ascension planet. It's called a descending planet. Such a planet will continue to evolve within its harmonic universe time cycles, slowly expending the energies held within its core until its particle pulsation rhythms slow, its temperature cool, and everything eventually implodes to become a black hole. It can take billions of years for a descending planet to meet this destination. This does not occur quickly, and life can continue to evolve upon its surface for many years. The phantom version of Earth will be cut off from the interdimensional time matrix. In phantom Earth, you'll be cut off from your soul matrix and evolutionary blueprint and in need of a host soul matrix transplant in order to continue evolution. So, I mean, that's what we're seeing with some of these so-called ETs or beings that are future human selves often, or at least that's what a lot of whistleblowers have determined, that these are beings coming from the future that more than likely, I mean, it's pretty obvious, were on that artificial timeline and digressed, and now are trying to get the genetic material and find a host soul in order to help them to find that place in them again. Not all of them are wanting to heal, though. So when we look at like Mars colonies and secret space programs and some of these agendas, a lot of them are still attempting to push people down that timeline because the darker forces still want to use, these beings. And so it's kind of like this showdown right now. And it really comes up to us because we have to win the war within. If we externalize it too much, we're going to feel helpless and we're going to put ourselves in a very vulnerable place. When we begin to do the energy work, when we see what the programmings are and how detrimental they are to the way we view reality and how much it limits our reality, that's when we can begin to break all of this. Because the future scenario of connecting into the AI and transhumanism agendas is this phantom Earth. And this epidemic right now that's breathing down our neck, potentially a pandemic, is some of the mechanisms they're trying to use. And we do not have to be a part of that. And that is what makes this window so amazing compared to other times in our history where we didn't have the opportunity we have now to absolutely transform and move through this. So anyway, DNA unplugged. DNA damage began 5,500 years ago with the Babylon Sumer invasion. And it erased DNA race memory and destroyed a holographic tree of life, took out the 8D and 12D, and blocked life force and kundalini and natural flow, our glands, pineal, pituitary, hypothalamus, and thyroid, shortens lifespans, damages immunity. And so when we have something like an epidemic breathing down our neck, and we know that like our junk DNA is compromising our immune system and our health and our ability to connect with the organic grids, we're being pushed to the edge right now to create, a breakthrough to begin to understand what is that junk. We need it right now. And sometimes we have to be pushed to the edge to begin to open up the doorway to, higher awareness. So regardless of how this got leaked into the public, how this virus got out there, on top of many other things that we're dealing with that are also threatening, we need to understand our junk DNA, because opening that doorway and connecting with that is what is going to help us to stay anchored on the organic ascension timeline. So as defined by Keylontic science, the phantom matrix is a black hole system created by the fallen angelics design to continually drain and accrete energy and consciousness from our living time matrix. Being in a state of chaos is a signature trait of the phantom matrix. So when you feel chaoticness in your life, chaoticness in partnerships, relationships, when you look at the world and it feels like chaos, we are like still looking at ourselves and each other in a chaotic way, because it starts with mind control. We were taught that this is junk. So the actions that we take, the words that we choose to speak, the way we conduct ourselves is either going to feed into that chaos or it's going to begin to bring harmony. Even though there's an ebb and flow, just in nature of chaos and harmony, it's a different kind of chaos. So while Neptune is getting closer and closer to the sun, this is when we can enter dream time and begin to go above the astral planes, where there's a lot of, entities and astral parasites, and begin to move into these higher levels. Music and art and, those kind of, healing frequencies and tones are really going to be helpful to smooth out any of the interferences or the things that like throw us into a more haunted place, where our belief systems or memories of trauma, keep us looping in anxiety and fear, which throws us into our survival chakra. So anyway, sorting out the junk DNA and understanding the treasure it is going to take out that chaotic piece, because the artificial component of our reality wants that chaos. And as long as we're functioning at a lower strand level and these other systems are kind of like creating, our reality in an artificial way, and we're linked into it because of, these dark technologies, chemtrails, potential 5G, vaccines, and all this different stuff. We just have to be conscious and mindful in every moment to break it in the moment. It's like forming a more harmonious relationship. It's not just going to happen without putting the effort in. We can't heal if we don't enhance our immune system. If we, and that's the most important thing, is that we feed the solution. We give our energy to the positive and to the things that are going to counteract this, instead of looping in the fear and the memories of our pasts that give us a doom and gloom outlook.